And we are live. The first ever Untitled Vig Villain Project Live is happening right now. So pretty cool stuff. Let's see if we can get our logo in the back going. That should be up. There we go. I think we're playing. I think we're flying now. Took a minute. It took a second, but we're going. This is the first time ever. I was going to start off with a bang because I've been wanting to get this started for a little bit, maybe a month or so, kind of kicking this idea around. And, you know, the big thing that had come up was, when do you dive in, right? Because there's always news happening. I first started this channel about a year ago. I did 2 or 3 videos and then kind of fell off it. But I really wanted to try doing something a little bit more news focused this time, a little bit more kind of about what interests me in gaming beyond just reviews, right? Because I'm never going to be a reviewer, mainly because I don't always want to play new games right when they come out. I don't want to rush through them, and it tends to take me a little bit of sitting on games before I really have my thoughts in order as far as what I feel, other than like initial thumbs up, initial thumbs down. So not what I want to get into. I gave that a spin early on, if you go back and check out some of the older videos, but I think this one is going to be much more focused on just kind of impressions, news, business dealings, if you will, with games, and also me learning how to keep my thoughts running without stumbling all over my words or repeating myself. As you can see, I do have Dead Cells Return to Castlevania playing over here, which sort of adds the lie to the idea that I don't like to play new. I do play new. Just not always. There are times when everything new coming out that week or that month just doesn't interest me, and I dive back into my ever expanding backlog and try to find a game there that's going to be exciting. This week I've been playing Dead Cells, Halo Infinite Season 3 launch, and then also I've been getting into Nier Automata. I missed it when it first came out. Saw the trailer, saw the reviews, thought it looked good, but just never pulled the trigger until a very good friend of mine, whose opinion I respect a lot on games, had let me know, hey, I think it's one of my favorite games ever. And that alone spurred me to go pick it up, pop it in, and start playing it. I'm about 2 hours in, and yeah, I'm kind of mind blown. The music in it is amazing. That opening sequence in Nier Automata is absolutely wild. I mean, just a tour de force. It felt like a game within a game. Like, the game opens with like a 30-40 minute game, like start to finish, right? Like, you literally go through different levels. There's sub bosses, you fight a boss, the boss has a second phase, and then you're out. And it's like it's a complete story, a full right. It was awesome. It really was. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, that game was fantastic. But let's talk about stick drift, because it wasn't what I was initially going to talk about, but I have to bring it up because I've never experienced stick drift until this week. I've had multiple Switches, I've had controllers throughout my life, and I've really never had a controller just bust ass where the stick is going off on its own. And this week it happened. First noticed it while playing Halo, kind of getting warmed up, ready for the new season 3, and I started just veering up. Like, my camera was just going up. The right stick was not having it on my like console edition, you know, the controller that came with the Xbox Series X, which is a shame. Not because I don't have other controllers. I do have other series controllers, but I like for all the controllers that are out and kind of visible in the room and getting used to all be the same uniform color, I like them to be black. I'll accept smoke gray if that's the option. But it's no longer an option, and I can't just go spend $40-$60 on a new controller over colors. That's silly shenanigans. So I'm using the Daystrike camo controller now. I don't know why I bought this controller. I don't particularly love the look. It's not terrible. It's just there's better looking ones, I think. I do have the 20th anniversary controller. I've got the Forza Horizon 5 controller. I don't want to get them out of the box, though. I don't want to mess them up. But yeah, that's my inane ramble to get started with. If you're still here, very shocking. Let's get into the news now. For my one listener, would you accept brownish black or blackest black? I'll only accept blackest black. Brownish black is, I don't think there's a controller I could even, I'm trying to even picture what that would be. So yeah, I won't accept it. It's got to be maybe a smoke gray, maybe or carbon black. Those really are the only options that I'm willing to entertain. Let's get into Starfield though, because if you're a villain like me, a VIG-ish villain, then you're very excited for Starfield. It is the number one game this year. My fiance has been calling it the Widowmaker because she knows she's going to lose me when it launches. They finally have told us when that might be. Very exciting stuff here. Come to find out, it's probably going to be, or not probably, it is going to be September 6th of this year. They released a trailer and they got into the date at the end. I'm very excited for Starfield. Like I said, it is my number one game. Can't wait. It's hard to think of a game I put more time into single player than Skyrim. I skipped Fallout 4 just because it's apocalyptic. And while I'll play post-apocalyptic games, I generally don't want to spend 100 hours or more in a post-apocalyptic world. It's just not really my bag. So something like, a Last of Us or something, or Metro Exodus, where I can be in and out in 15, 20 hours. That's more my style for the apocalypse. I'm trying to think of any exception. Maybe The Division and The Division 2, but they're pretty light on like the apocalyptic feel. It feels fairly recent. We're a year later, a few years later, and really I'm there for the gunplay with that one. But Starfield looks like the kind of world I'll happily sink a few 100 hours into. If I'm being honest, I think I damn near got near 1,000 hours with Skyrim, and that was vanilla. I don't think I put mods on it for the first few runs. I just get really sucked into Bethesda style RPGs like that. Very excited to see where they go with this one. We don't need to stay too long on this video. We don't need to get obsessed over the lovely Todd Howard there talking about what they've got going on. But yeah, I'm pumped for Starfield. Not much to say on other than that. I know some people are upset that, hey, it lasted more than, they said, Xbox had said at their last showcase last summer, everything we're showing here is, targeting a 12-month release. And they've missed it with Starfield, right? It's not coming out till September. They're looking like they're going to miss it with the new Forza Motorsport. Those are two of the big AAAs that missed it. Everything else seems to be lining up in that window, like Redfall and such. But look, I just think it's only 2 months. It's got to be big. I think Xbox has learned from the struggles with Halo Infinite and not having. They stuck the landing with Halo Infinite when they should have hit the ground running, I think is how I think of it. Because I do maintain that Halo Infinite, the gunplay is some of the best that's ever been in a Halo game. I haven't stopped playing it. I actually really, really enjoy what they're doing with Halo Infinite, but obviously they've needed more content. They had really no cadence built. It's like they weren't ready for what a live service game is. And I think we've seen this with a lot of devs coming out with these games that are maybe intended to be live service or intended to kind of hold you. They're not putting in the effort needed, right? So one of the things I think is such a big deal about the Microsoft Activision merger is that with Call of Duty, say what you want about Activision, that is a publisher that has put in the resources and the time needed to make sure that Call of Duty is something that has a consistent cadence, not just in the yearly releases, but that there's always something changing or new being added to things like Warzone or their multiplayer elements. And I think that that's what studios are going to have to start doing if they want to have these live service games that take you away from other live service games, which for most people, they have one. Most people have one main live service game that they're going to stick with, and they're not going to play a handful of them, right? So if you want to compete with the Warzones, the Destinies, the Fortnites, you need to put in the resources and the dev time and be ready to implement. Not like, oh, if we get users, if it catches on, then we're going to throw resources at it and then we're going to try and play catch up. That's never going to work because it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? It's that kind of a situation where if you don't put in the resources up front, if people don't see content coming, they don't see a pipeline that's there from day one, they're going to check out. And once they've checked out, you're not going to have that word of mouth. You're not going to be able to build this studio, which I do. On the other hand, I see that makes it more dangerous for these studios, right? To really put all your effort behind a big game like that, a big live service game. That's really risky, but that's why I think it's going to have to be these big studios. They're going to have to be very careful. We're not going to be able to see all these live service games rolling out pardon my French, willy-nilly, like we've been seeing, where they're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. I think they're going to really have to be thoughtful about what IP they use, what the gameplay loop is, and where does this fit in relation to what's already on the market that has player attention. So hopefully we start to see those changes and we start to see people really care about that stuff. I think it's possible. I think it's doable. I'm excited to see what PlayStation has in store. I know they've got 10 or 12 live service games they're going to be rolling out. Factions is one of those. We don't really know what else there is. Some of it's going to be second party, but I'm hopeful that PlayStation is going to be able to bring that sort of thoughtful and just they're going to implement it with heavy dev resources and really give us something that's from day one, something you're going to want to stick around with, something where you can see the roadmap and kind of know what's coming and not be like, well, I hope they implement this, or hopefully they'll fix this in 6 months, because you're just not going to retain players if you don't come ready to rock day one. I mean, we've seen games like Sea of Thieves slowly build success, and 35 million players now is how many players they've reached. That's a huge success story, but I don't think we're not in that same league anymore. I don't think any game is going to get years to slowly build up, right? And not every game is going to have the resources of Xbox and Microsoft to give Rare the room to make that grow. And I do think too, if Sea of Thieves had launched as it was 3 years in, it would be much bigger than it is. But that initial release really hurt it, when it was a beautiful game with a cool idea, a cool concept, but it was very content light. That hurt it. So that's kind of my big ramble about live service games and what they're going to do with these going forward. Got a little off topic there, but just wanted to put that out there. I know we kind of touched just now on the Microsoft Activision deal. That's been kind of on my mind. I don't think there's a way around talking about it. I know a lot of people are like tired of hearing about it, but I do think it's pertinent. And I think what's interesting about it is that it's giving us a window into the way these businesses work that at a lot of other times, or in a lot of other cases, we don't get to see this. We don't get to see even the vitriol, even the kind of nasty side of it. I think is helpful in that it reminds people that these are corporations. These are companies out to make a buck. And that's kind of two-sided. One, they're not like your buddy. They're not a community. They don't support you. It's not a team. It's not, people almost make it like football teams, right? PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, what team are you on? It's not even that relation, because at least with a team, you are kind of rooting for these players that are going out there doing the best they can. And, it's got that sort of hometown vibe, right? Everybody has the team they like, and there's sort of a spirit there. I don't think these corporations should be treated that way. Obviously, you can like devs, you can like studios. I'm a fan of many studios. I'm a fan of devs in particular, but we got to kind of keep that hard line with these corporations, right? Like, I'm not a fan of any of these corporations. I'm not a fan of any of these platforms. I don't consider myself a PlayStation, Nintendo, or Xbox fan. I don't consider myself a Steam fan. I consider myself a fan of Uncharted. I'm a fan of Gears of War. I'm a fan of Fable. I'm a fan of Zelda. I can't wait for these to come out, but I'm not a fan of these platforms. These are companies that want my dollar. I'm a customer, and I want them to provide that sort of service. So I think that's what overall one of the big things the Microsoft Activision deal has kind of shown a lot of people as they watch Microsoft and Sony get in the mud. I mean, and it's a fight for a knife in the mud right now, right? At all these regulators. I think people are starting to see just how messy it can be and just how these companies operate. I do want to touch on a couple things with that. Just to go over here real fast, pull up Lulu Chang Maservi, and I hope I'm not getting that wrong, but she had tweeted on the 8th. Microsoft offered Sony the dominant console leader for well over a decade with 80% market share, a 10-year agreement on far better terms than Sony would ever get from us. We've also offered Sony guaranteed long-term access to Call of Duty, but they keep refusing. Why? And then she links it to Tom Warren's from The Verge, his comments around PlayStation and Call of Duty and how they had accused Microsoft of possibly releasing a buggy mess on PlayStation and how that might impact any sort of deal they could have, right? Like, we can't agree on a deal with Microsoft because, hey, they could put a bunch of bugs in our game. She goes on to say, the CEO of SIE answered that question in Brussels. In his words, I don't want a new Call of Duty deal. I just want to block your merger. Now, I think we've seen people on both sides kind of take this and run with it. On the kind of Xbox side, you're seeing a lot of people say like, "Oh, this is proof positive that Jim Ryan is, lying, crying." All the bullshit they throw at this guy who's just a CEO of a company, right? They kind of accuse him. And then on the PlayStation side, you see people saying, "So what? Of course he's against the deal. We already knew he was against the deal." But I want to point out that this is all PR and this is a timing thing, right? This happened on March 8th. What else happened on March 8th? The CMA in the UK released, if you go here to responses to possible remedies, this is when they released, right? This is the British dating system here. I might be blocking, at least if I can scroll where you can see that. Okay, the British dating system here, 8/3/23, Microsoft and Sony's responses to the remedy. So on that same day that they released these, where Microsoft is kind of saying, "Hey, this is how we feel about these remedies," and Sony is putting out their observations on the remedies, where they're basically saying Microsoft is not negotiating in good faith. We don't see any way this deal can happen. They're kind of laying all these things out. You have the chief communications officer and a C-level, the EVP at Activision, saying, they're telling us, you've got Jim Ryan here saying that he doesn't even want to consider a deal. He just wants to block the merger. That, to a regulator doesn't want to know that a critic of a deal is just, obstinate, right? Like, they're unconstructive. They don't want to hear any sort of solutions or remedies. They just want to stop it. That puts a shadow on everything that Sony's saying. Did that work with the regulators? I don't know, but I think it's pretty obvious that that's Activision's PR move right here. It's been clear from pretty much the get-go when Microsoft and Activision started replying to regulators with the CMA and with the EU that Activision's tact, PR-wise, has been to be much more aggressive, much more bulldogish, much more kind of in-your-face, common language, coming at it pretty aggressively, like, "Hey, we're going to fight this. This is wrong. This is BS," essentially. And they've been coming at it, very aggressively. But Microsoft has sort of sat back and tried to be much more of the sort of peacemaker, the reasonable one in the room is how they tried to present themselves, with the exception of the kind of outrageous way they came out swinging against the FTC, where they called the FTC's unconstitutional, and then very quickly had to walk that back a few days later. But yeah, I just want to point that out because I see a lot of people getting heated about this, and they're either saying that Lulu Maservi is kind of like off the reservation, off her rocker, just acting wild, or they're saying that like this means nothing. And I don't think either's true, right? I think she's obviously wargamed her PR approach, and she's doing this very deliberately, very intentionally. And this is Activision's PR campaign here. This is not somebody going wild. And at the same time, there is a reason for this. If Jim Ryan said this, if this is on the record, then that does cast a little bit of a shadow in regulators' eyes, surely, that, okay, if they're being this obstructive and they're not willing to consider any deal, Activision had also submitted that the deal Microsoft offered Sony is better than anything they've ever offered Sony. So if Sony is really like, we don't want to hear, there's no offer you can make us, we don't want to hear anything, we're not going to listen to, like, literally, you could make any offer you wanted, we're not going to hear it. That's something regulators have to take in mind when they're looking at Sony's criticisms, right? If Sony can't be appeased, then we've got to look, you got to take a grain of salt to all of their criticisms about the deal if their only solution is actually to block it, no matter what they say with respect to divestitures, right, which Microsoft has already turned down. So I think that's an important thing to consider when we look at those stuff. But enough of that. I've kind of ranted and raved on that. I'm boring myself. Let's go through some sort of quicker news, I think, that I want to touch on. I think is interesting. So RPG Site had brought up something pretty interesting on Twitter. They noticed here that pending approval at the next annual shareholder meeting for Square Enix, which I believe will take place in June or July, over the summer for sure this year, they will be switching out their CEO. So we have, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names here, but Takashi Kiryu coming in for Yosuke Matsuda, right? Taking over. Kiryu had come up through as a chief strategy officer, both at Square Enix proper and at Square Enix's Chinese holdings. And so he'll be taken over as CEO, obviously pending, or president, I'm sorry, but he'll be taking over as head of Square Enix pending approval at the shareholders meeting. This is interesting because obviously we've seen Matsuda has been really the voice behind Square Enix getting into like blockchain and NFT style games, which I don't think anybody likes except for Dr. Disrespect at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what Kiryu does instead, and if he still runs with that or if he wants to move on from there and do something a little bit different. So we'll find out. I also think it's interesting, and I'm just speculating here, but the end of last year, kind of starting at the end of the summer and through the holidays and sort of the start here, Square Enix was pumping out titles, things like Diofield Chronicles, Tactics Ogre Reborn, Harvestella. Really, it felt like almost like boom, 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 week after week they were putting out a game, very little marketing. And at the time, it was like, hey, are they spitting all these games out to get ready for an acquisition? Maybe. I'm kind of wondering if they weren't spitting them all out to sort of clean slate for the new regime. Maybe that's not how they operate, but I know at a lot of companies that is something where, you know, you look at when like a C-level comes into a television network or whatever, they generally like to cancel a bunch of shows or move things around and kind of really make their mark. They want the shows they approve. They want their regime to sort of fill in all the gaps, right? And push out anything that maybe still smells of the old guard, right? So that's something I think is a possibility there that they were looking at doing. Don't know for sure, obviously, but think it is something that's interesting to consider. Yeah, that's that. Also up, we've got Halo 3, Halo 3's Halo Infinite Season 3, which I'm very excited for. I'm excited to see where they go with this. Not going to run through all these patch notes, really just kind of pulling it up to get the camera off my mug for a minute. But I've been playing this week. I've got through the Mindfall kind of free battle pass that had, I believe, 10 levels where you kind of unlock the cosmetics there that is limited time. That's how they get you with the FOMO, is there's a free battle pass. It's like a week or two, get in there. And then you've got the longer 100 level battle pass that you pay for, and then it never expires. You can go back and kind of turn on battle passes as you see fit as you play, which I think is a nice touch they're doing. Overall, I've been pretty happy with Season 3. I think I've got some footage here we could jump to. Let's see. I do, yeah. Let's see. Let's get in there for this. I've got a little bit of footage here from me playing. Pretty excited with this, man. They've added a new gun, the Bandit, which is a semi-automatic rifle. I don't know if I love it. Like, I'm not sure if after the honeymoon period with this season wears off, I'm going to be going to the Bandit as a pickup weapon over like a BR or another kind of mid-tier power weapon. But right now I'm loving it. I've got a soft spot. I'm a sucker for semi-automatic rifles in any game. You give me a bolt action, I'm usually pretty happy. You give me something that's single fire each tap, I tend to like it. So yeah, been pretty cool here. Man, we're just getting through this loading screen. It takes so long. I've got to get better at editing these clips. Sorry, y'all. But here we go. We're getting into the new map here, which has been nice. They've got the playlist that just rolls through with this stuff, and yeah, it's been a nice change seeing how much content they bring in. Right, they've brought in the new equipment, the Shroud. They've added 3 new maps, 2 arena, 1 big team battle map. As well as updating Forge maps into the community creations. Forge is another thing they've got to get right still, though. They're doing really cool work in there. I think they just hit over 1 million maps designed in Forge. The issue is you have to go in and join through a separate menu, right? It's not in your normal playlist. You have to go to custom browser. You go to the custom browser, you look through maps. And the big thing that killed it for me, I play Halo a lot of times with a squad. There's 4 of us. We went to load into Forge. We were ready. We had our drinks. We had our snacks. We had our controllers. We were ready to kill some time in Forge. And you can't load in with a fire team. You can't load in your whole lobby into it. You have to load in individually. Hope it's not full. Hope you can all get in. It's a huge pain. They've got to adjust that. If you could load in with a fire team, a full team, and just start cycling through Forge games, just even on random, even just on playlists, that would be great. So they've got the community creations playlist, where it's very curated. They've got a handful of maps, handful of modes from Forge maps. That's been great, loading in and playing that. But I really do feel they need to open up Forge to fire teams so that parties can log in and play it. Otherwise, I just don't think it's going to have the run that it needs and get the push that it needs. I mean, I still don't think it's taking off like it would have if they'd launched with Forge at the start. This season feels like what should have hit 60 to 90 days after Halo Infinite initially launched. It feels like they're finally where they should have been a month or two after initial release. And I mean, it's pretty late, right? Because that was November, December of 21. So we're over a year later. They're finally getting to where they need to be. I mean, I think it took them too long. I'm happy to play it, but I don't begrudge anybody who's kind of left this game behind it and is not looking at it anymore. However, if you are curious, I really do highly recommend. This is a great season to jump in and start playing. One of my favorite games here, and I'm hopeful that they just continue to knock things out as it goes forward, because this has really been my sort of go-to game to kind of keep up with week after week, right? Knock out your weeklies, put on a podcast and just grind. This has been kind of my game for that, and also playing with friends. So been very cool here. I think I get a pretty good kill right here, so I'm not going to cut away because I'm going to no scope. I'm about to turn around. I'm going to kill this guy. He dead. And then this third one. And then you can all see what a jerk I am because I'm going to clip it. Does it show that yeah, look, you're going to see I took a clip for my friends only to get a fourth kill. I should have waited on that clip. Pretty foolish of me. But it is what it is. So we got that out of the way. I think we're moving along pretty well here for the initial live stream I've ever done. Really only like my fourth video I think I've put up on YouTube. So pretty pleased with that. And we're coming off, shaking the rust off a year of nothing. Oh, you know what? I did want to touch on something I thought was kind of interesting. In January and February, there's a little bit of news online on things like LinkedIn and some other platforms, kind of circling back to Sony and Microsoft, not Xbox and SIE, right? Not PlayStation and Xbox. This was Sony Corp and Microsoft. They had announced a partnership years ago, 2019, right? That they were going to look to do some work together around like semiconductors and sensors and AI and cloud-based stuff through Azure. And we're seeing the fruition of some of that stuff coming up now. Let me just cut over to this real fast. We've got, so on Sony's, Sony Semiconductor Solutions Corporation, which is a subsidiary of Sony, the same way that SIE is a subsidiary of Sony. They had announced this new system they've launched, and it's not really like a sexy system. It's actually kind of weird. It uses the Internet of Things, right? So the connection of like physical devices to like track people. Like there was an example somewhere. Let me see if I can find this. This kind of blew my mind. Well, they probably don't talk about it here, but they mention here from the Microsoft Azure Marketplace, the services installed on Azure infrastructure that's owned by customers, right? So they are doing some partnership stuff here with Microsoft, which I do think that does make me wonder, right? How deep is the wound between these two companies over the Activision Microsoft merger? And what's that going to do for these continued collaborations between them? Because if we jump here, innovationleader.com had an interesting article on Atrios being laid out here, right? So Sony innovation exec on finding use cases for new AI tech. And I might, when this goes VOD, I'm going to try to put some of these articles linked into it, so anyone who wants to can click on it. Not that anyone other than my fiance is watching this right now. And babe, thank you for the support. But just to kind of cut into what they're doing here, interestingly, they had this very interesting piece they wrote in here about I should have marked this up already, guys. Let's see if I can find it. While I'm looking for it, let's just cut back to a little Dead Cells for you while I find this real fast. Look at that Castlevania stuff. Oh, and I'm not in the first level on this. Here we go. And I'll give you guys a little music that should have been on the whole stream, and I just now I'm turning it on. Whoops. You live and you learn, right, guys? Next stream, the music will be on the whole time. This is such a crazy thing they wrote in the article. I don't want to say it unless I can find it, but I'm going to anyway. This can be used to track how many people are in a space and whether or not they washed their hands. This is what Sony and Microsoft are teaming up to do, is to check if we are hygienic or not, which is pretty scary, right? Like, that's kind of terrifying when you look into what they're able to do with this stuff. It's pretty wild. But I'm going to skip over it because I don't know what I did with that article or how this would all work. But yeah, look into it. I'm going to put a link in when I find the article, so if anyone wants to go back, if you ever stumble across this video and make it this far into it, then you deserve that link. So I'm going to do my best to get it in the description. Really wanted to touch on, it looks like we're getting close to the 40-minute mark, a little bit longer than I expected to go with this stream. Okay, that's pretty cool, I suppose. A little bit easier than I thought it was going to be to ramble. Hope I didn't put anybody to sleep out there. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for Vig Villain's initial inaugural stream. I want to thank everybody who watched or who watches this in the future. Please, if you enjoyed this content or you want to see me continue to fail or slowly improve, please like the video, subscribe, turn on the notifications so you can hear when I go live. I'm not sure it'll always be Sundays either. I'm still kind of working out the time. This weekend, though, I really just wanted to get a video out first time, test out the kinks, and see how this does. And then we'll try and pick a date, maybe Thursday through Monday, somewhere in there. Yeah, anyway, I'm done rambling. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.